Hello, everyone. Can you guys hear me all right? Let me know in the chat if everything is working. Welcome to this series of streamings that I'm planning for the next 5 months. It's essentially the combination of many years teaching Unreal Engine in university and colleges here in Canada. Oops, I'm getting audio feedback, so let me mute myself. Sorry for that. So yeah, this is a combination of many years teaching Unreal Engine and UFN. And what I wanted to do was get the content of this many years teaching in institutions of education here in Canada and put on YouTube for free. So people can, my students, they already graduated, can watch it. New students, people that just wanted to learn Unreal, the transition for other parts of the industry, once you learn the basis of it, can watch it too. Also with the currently landscape in the industry, a lot of students closing down, a lot of people losing their jobs or looking for work. I think it's the best I can do right now to help. It's essentially just share my knowledge for free online and help people achieve their dreams. And I think learning Unreal Engine, Houdini, those are the two things that I think right now are on demand and they can really help you guys get a job. I know a lot of people charge for this kind of training, but I wanted to make this forever free. So for any chance you can watch the live streams in real time, you can finish today. We're going to spend an hour and a half probably, or close to 2 hours. You can attend next week. You can attend Thursday. You can always watch the recording after the fact. It'll leave on live forever. And hopefully, it's the first time I'm streaming live on YouTube. Everything will go according to the plan. So the schedule for our next meetings are the following. I think that is something that I was asked before, what exactly I'm doing related to that. So today we're going to talk about introduction to Unreal, creating the project, setting up the project, full destruction, naming convention, that kind of stuff. Then next Thursday, so in Wednesday, tomorrow, Thursday, the other, is getting started with UFN, also introduction to UFN. So what I'm trying to do is like every week, this is the same theme for both UFN and Unreal. So this week is an introduction. I just like moving stuff around, placing stuff in the world, start to build stuff, accessing fab, that kind of stuff. The next week is a material week. Then the other week is a lagging week, and then the other week is rendering. And then we're gonna be continue to do this every month for the next 5 months. So just building up and getting as complex as we can throughout the process. So next month, May, we're gonna be talking about materials again, but then we're gonna be focusing only in landscape, for example. So I have other stuff sprinkled in, like we're gonna do some Niagara introduction. So my goal is to really just trying to get as much content about Unreal as possible. So we're talking about, I'm gonna open my calculator here, like 1.5 hours times 2 times 4 times 5. So we're talking about 60 hours of free content, right? That's my commitment to you guys. And of course, leave comments, talk to me on LinkedIn and Instagram, whatever, X. Just shoot me a message if there's anything specific you would like me to cover. Of course, I'm going to do that. That's the goal for this. In parallel with this channel, I'm also going to run some devlogs that I'm going to start in a few weeks from now. It's just I'm still trying to figure out the whole live streaming. My camera quality fucking sucks. So I'm going to try to do this proper. The devlogs are essentially a game that I'm building for myself, by myself, alone at this moment, with my help of my brother, just with the story. So I'm gonna use the devlog to show process behind the scenes, and I'm gonna also use the devlogs, which is gonna be a few videos I'm gonna sprinkle once every 2 weeks or twice every 2 weeks, I don't know, to show workflow stuff on the daily work that I do. I work for broadcast a lot. I work with virtual production, so I might gonna put some of that here and there. Then every week, starting tomorrow, I'm also dropping this 1 minute, 1 minute and a half videos with just like flash tips about Unreal, stuff that you like do useful. I'm calling it temporarily 9 to 5, which is essentially like a joke of like, what do you need to know for a 9 to 5 job? So I'm just gonna build this videos, post on Instagram and LinkedIn, and it's just short minute, 1 minute, 1 minute and a half, 2 minutes video with just a trick, like something that you might use in a reel that can fit in that format, right? So I'm trying to tackle different avenues in order to enrich the experience for everyone. Hopefully, when I learn, I will also clip these live streams. I don't know how to do that yet, but I'm going to figure out that eventually. If any of you experience doing that kind of stuff, you can message me. And that's it. So The way that I want to structure this is I'm gonna go to the whole live stream, non-stop, and then I'm gonna address the questions in the end of it, strictly because I want people to be able to watch it without interruption. I know I tend to, like, when I answer stuff, I tend to just like stop and just go on tangents, but I wanted to have a flow, so beginner to end, and that's why we're gonna do this. So let's just go. Let's hit the ground running, folks. Whoa. All right. So this is the Unreal Launcher. When you download it from the Epic website, so if I go here, Epic Games, and you see there's a link here called Epic Games Launcher, and I'm gonna drop this link in the chat for all of you, but I will put that stuff into the description too. You just download it, you install it. If you probably have this already, chances are you're already using this. And the idea is a launcher that's unified with the game store, but also with the Unreal stuff, right? So if I go to my library here, that's a Easter egg for Thursday class. Even though it's a little bit slow right now, it's gonna show me my UEFN Fortnite installation in this computer, right? So I don't know why it's super slow for this moment, but whatever. If I go to Unreal Engine, then it lists every single Unreal Engine version and content related to it. So in my news tab is essentially everything about Unreal Engine. And so there's like a new sample release that you can access. There's a feature fab content that is free. So this is a free of the month essentially content that is available to you. Really weird why it's not really loading, which is annoying, but oopsie. Forgive me for that. So yeah, so you can access the kind of stuff. If you go to samples, those are all projects that have gameplay specific stuff that was attached to a training or to a project that is made available. So in this thing here, like you see that you have the Lyra starter game content, which essentially is project that allows you to create a multiplayer setup, right? You have your SIGA sample, which was what was used for the Matrix demo. So you can just go here. You have the game animation sample that has a lot of free animations for you that you can use as a very good resource. So you do have a lot of stuff available that you can use it from here. And you can access this. You just need to see. I'm pretty sure all of this is available for commercial use too. But it might be interesting to read a little bit the information about that. So you can have access to this sample. This is an amazing resource to learn. I use it a lot. And like I was taking a look at the Crowdpower sample project recently. Project Titan I work with this too. Like I was doing some masters during the project. This was like a community project that they make it together so people can learn how to use Perforce. Then you have the fab that's not going to open. It's going to go to the store. That's how you download stuff from it. Then you have your library, which essentially has the projects that are on your machine. And that's hidden for you because I don't want you to see that. But the projects that I have on your machine, there was some work projects. Then you have your fab library. And the cool thing about you have an Unreal Engine account is that you can download this stuff every month for free, like I showed you in the news here. Like there was a bunch of stuff in samples, I guess they were saying. No, it was news. There's a bunch of stuff that is free this month, including this amazing alien-looking avatar-style asset pack. I downloaded that already, so that shows up here. So this thing here is an infinite scroll, like you can see here on the side. It's gonna even give you a headache because I'm going so fast. But this is like years and years of my accounts and years and years of my content is available for me, right? Well, what you also have access here is your engine versions, right? You can install several engines all the way to 4. Well, and then you might ask, Thiago, why the hell would I want to have a different engine versions? And you can see that I do have different engine versions. The reason for that is because some of these engines are compatible with some specific plugins that you might use in the industry. So there might be a reason for a specific plugin that you use in production that hasn't yet been developed for 5.5, for example. So you will have to run this plugin, you will have to run this project, you will have to run that stuff in the older version of Unreal. You might have to emotion or not. That's another software that's parallel to Unreal. It's very good for architecture visualization. Then you have a reality capture call to action here, so you can download it. That's a 3D scanning software that Epic owns. That allows you to put a bunch of pictures and use it. So that's pretty much it. So for this course, what we're going to do, we're going to create the project together, and I'm going to walk you through naming convention, folder structure. We're gonna learn, if this is the first time you open in Unreal, I'm gonna go to all the hotkeys in the viewport. I'm gonna explain to you what the viewport is, and we're gonna go from there. And we're gonna end this class by adding an asset inside there and manipulating the asset to build some rough geometry, almost like blocking a level almost, okay? So what I want you to do is just go to 5.3, sorry, 5.5.3, just launch it, and we're gonna go to this process together. It's gonna ask me, do you want to allow this app to make changes to your device? That means yes. This is the first time I'm running this version in this computer. I'm essentially streaming my parallel computer in my room here. So what I'm gonna do, if it takes a little bit of time to compile the shaders, I'm just gonna break to my webcam while that stuff does. So essentially what it's doing here is just doing the compiling shaders. It's essentially saving to memory all this stuff. And usually it depends on your machine, actually. If it's a fast machine, this is going to be super fast. As you can see, it's going fast for me. If it is an older machine, it might take a little bit more time. So we don't really know how long it might take. After the fact, after we create a project, it might also take some little time too. So I'm also going to clean my desktop. We have done that before. There you go. It didn't even work. Trying to keep organized. Yeah, didn't work at all. So we're just gonna ignore my Dougie desktop. All right, so this is the Unreal Project browser. Essentially what this does is it allows you to go to your recent project tabs and see what projects that you have open recently. For me, there's not gonna be anything here because I'm running 5.5.3. I don't have any project that I recently used that version in this specific computer. So nothing's going to be there. Then you have all the tabs here. They're essentially templates. The cool thing about Unreal is if you, for a chance, you're going to be like, Thiago, I started with a first-person template, but mid work, I decided that my game was actually going to be a top-down. Did I screw myself over? It's done for me. Not really, because all of this stuff's essentially a collection of assets and plugins that you can always enable. So usually when I'm actually working, when I'm doing stuff, I'm always start with blank. I don't like to start stuff with a bunch of content already because it just makes the project bloated. But for today, we might pick one. Probably we're gonna pick top-down third person. And you can see here that this is like, it gives you like some kind of like blueprints and setups for specific gameplays. So if you know you're doing a first-person game, might as well just get the first-person setup, right? Why not? Then you have different setups that you can pick, like a first-person, third-person, top-down, handheld, AR, and it gives you a preview here, an explanation of what they are. By the way, you can also create those things. We're gonna have a class that we're gonna create our own presets, or own project settings, and you can create it and have it always here available. So if you create like my Thiago master project, you can have it here, and everything that you create is gonna have the plugins, the work that you have already enabled. This is essentially the game section. So if you go to your film, video, and live events, it's the same thing. You have the blank version for that has some plugins already enabled for virtual production and video and live events. So this blank is not really the same as this blank. They're very different, okay? So even the description says it's different, like it's a blank template with minimal functionality. You have your virtual production settings, you have a DMX controls. DMX is essentially is a controlling lights, like is a DMX protocol can control a bunch of stuff, but usually this is for light shows in real life. So you can design, if you're working like for, I don't know, Tomorrowland, you design a whole show, you can use this to control, have a set up in Unreal in the virtual world, the lights, and link the lights to the actual physical lights that exist in real life. Then you have IC VFX and camera VFX. If you know me, you probably know that I work a lot with this. You have your motion design. That's a brand new template that has a bunch of cool stuff in it. Very awesome. It uses Avalanche, and it's something that we're gonna in 2 months from now probably touch base on it. You have your end display setup. You can create your end display windows. This is very useful for setting up LED panels. Then your architecture, you have a blank that is set up, minimum functionality for architecture, and it is actually telling you, enables you to use DataSmith to import models. Don't worry, if you don't know what DataSmith is, we're gonna touch on that in the future, so we can just ignore that for now. Then you have ArcViz, you have Design Configurator, which is a very cool one. It doesn't necessarily need to be for architecture. We can actually use Design Configurator, for example, for a shoe. You can have different materials, different settings, and the shoe changes the materials based on that. You have a collab viewer that allows people to, like someone be working together with desktop VR or another desktop, so you can all together be in the same scene. You have another handheld AR too. Automotive, same thing. Look at that. There's a product configurator, very similar to this thing here, to be honest with you. Then you have the same kind of, you almost have the same stuff over and over, with just a few settings that are changed here and there. Okay? But for us, today, what we're going to be doing, we're going to create a blank games. Okay? Because this is the minimum possible project that we can create that might be useful for us. What I can do here is, if I go down here, is pick a location to save it. And what I'm going to do is actually going to go to my C drive. And I'm going to create a folder. I'm going to say Thiago Unreal livestream. Select that folder. And my project will be UE5 live. I might even continue to work on this, so I'm just going to give a generic name for now. So this is what the saving location of that project for me. What I can also do here too is set up if I want this to be a blueprint or a C++ project. I am not a programmer, so I haven't yet in my life used C++, and I don't think I will ever will. Maybe one day. So I'm always going to select Blueprints. Blueprints is a scripting language, visual programming language inside Unreal. And the target platform for me is desktop. If you pick mobile, whatever, you can also change this after the fact. And the quality you can also change after the fact too. The thing here that you can enable started content is essentially a list of assets that are available for you when you start a game. Sorry, when you start a project. So you have like some surfaces, fire, stuff like that. We don't need this because, like I told you, like everything else we have in the project, even though I will make a third person with started content, it's something that we can enable after the fact, and I want to show to you how to do that. I want you to know how to do that kind of stuff. So blank project, there is nothing, let's create. And as you can see right now, it's going to compile shaders, and it's giving me a list of 11,000 materials or shaders that need to be compiled. And this is usually the process that takes a little bit of time. So I'm just going to cut to myself, and we can talk a little bit about this. Just take a sip. Some people here talking about the UFN course that I gave before. That was pretty cool too. It was like a month, 6 hours a week, I think. Sorry. That was also a pretty cool course that we had together. All right, so while this is loading, and that's the problem of creating stuff with you guys. It's just, we're going to have to wait for this to compile because I'm doing this live. There's no smoke and mirrors in this setting. I want to show to you guys some stuff. So first things first, we are going to be following this style guide into the project. This is what's created by Michael Alar, which is an amazing Unreal artist. And he created a style guide. A style guide is essentially a list of best practices on folder structure and naming convention. This is used by many people in the industry. And like, you name it, from broadcast to games to VR to VFX. Everyone uses this. The reason why everyone uses this, and I even see people in Epic using too, is because it already kind of like give you like a starting point that is almost like an industry standard for everyone that people understand, and it's easier for people to organize themselves. Thiago, what you're saying is a little bit confusing. Well, I'm going to explain to you by making an analogy to Photoshop. When we're doing a Photoshop scene, and I want to save a version of a project, right? I would do like, let's say I'm doing like a bumper _ final. I get a feedback from my supervisor, from my boss, and they're like, well, we need to make a change to this. Some of you might say bumper _ final _ version 2. Some might say bumper _ final _ version 2 _ this time is for real. So that kind of saving a project, right? Saving like a Photoshop file multiple times is fine. But in Unreal, we don't have that. We don't get the luxury of save a different version of the whole project by itself. We can save versions with version control per force a git But that's not something, unfortunately, that you have available for you out of the box when you install Unreal. It's different when you use UEFN. So tomorrow we're going to talk about it. You actually have version control out of the box with UEFN. It's amazing. I wish Unreal had that. So it's not the case though in Unreal right now, which means the way that you set up your project, the way that you set up the naming conventions inside the project, the way that you move files inside the project, and how you commit those changes, save those changes, plays a huge role in how your project is going to be set up. And essentially what that means, sorry, I'm looking for this camera, then I need to look at this to look at you, and it's kind of weird. So I'm going to be looking at this one because I think this looks weird. I don't know. Yeah, I'm going to look like this. Boom. I'm already committed to that. As I can see, ADHD is hell drug. I'm literally have a distracting myself. What we're saying is, why naming convention is important? Because when you commit to change, when you make like, I have a file, sword, s_sword. When I say that, everyone that understands this naming convention knows that S stands for static mesh. So they know I'm talking about static mesh out of the box. If I went to rename it, that asset needs to be renamed and moved in a specific way that will make sense for people, right? And the folder structure that we use, the naming convention that we use, is either going to ruin our project or make us be very successful with it. So it's very important. So let's just go through this while the project is still compiling. We can just go through this and I'll explain to you what the most important stuff that we're looking for is. So let's go back to our browser. If you go down here, the link is on the chat, and you can all go to this link too, or you can just Google Alar UE5 style guide. It's going to be the first link. No error, no doubt. Okay. When I have this stuff in there and I scroll down, I would recommend you guys read this at least once in your life, to be honest. I told this to all my students. But you can see that the most useful naming conventions are already listed here. So everything is a prefix and a suffix, right? And then what is in between is the name of the asset, is actually the name of the asset plus a definition of the asset. So here's telling me that a skeleton mesh in this example is sk_bob. A material for that skeleton mesh, for that character, I know it's a skeleton mesh because it says sk, which means it's a character. A material is m_bob. A texture is t_bob, but if it's a diffuse and albedo, it's going to be a d after. A normal is going to be n. If it's a variation of the diffuse evil, it's t_bob evil_d. So that's the kind of stuff that we're going to have to get into the habit of doing, because that's important for us when we're designing stuff inside of Unreal. Still compiling. So let's go a little bit lower here. One of the things that you have here is the prefixes for levels and suffixes. I personally do a variation of this. I always start with an L_ for everything that is a level. The P after the suffix, and we're going to understand this when we talk about level, is essentially persistent. That means it's the most important level that exists. Then you might have variations of that. So I have L. So like if I were to make a level, it's going to be L_, the name of the level, let's say house, _ the audio of the house, or _ lagging. And maybe I have a definition of that. Maybe the definition would be lagging inside the house. So it's going to be L_, so I'm going to put here L_house _lagging interior. Something like that. Okay? So that would be the naming convention for that. So by just doing that, I already know that that's a level because it has an L. I'm talking about the house level. I'm talking about the lagging of the house level. And I'm specifically talking about the interior lagging of that scenario. So I also hear someone ask, what would it be the evil on the diffuse? This is just a specification. Like I just did with the level, I'm just specifying. So the structure of this is the type of item, which is a texture, the type of asset, the name of the asset, the variation of the asset, and what kind of asset that is as a suffix. Okay? So all of this is already designed in a way that's going to make sense to you. And like, look how many already listed. When you're creating stuff in Unreal, you're going to notice that it's always going to be the first letter of each word. So if you have an animation blueprint, it's going to be ABP, animation blueprint. Okay? That's kind of the idea that you're going for. So if it's a blueprint, it's going to be a BP. If it's a blueprint component, it's telling me the suffix to be component, but I actually usually do BPC, to be quite honest with you. So This is not the rule of the land, but this is a starting point for you to understand it. And you're more than welcome to just try it out and use something that makes sense to you. But I would recommend using this as much as you can. One of the things that you're going to be noticing here that is listing the textures separate. But sometimes you have something that is a pack texture. So I'm talking about the house. I'm going to say T underscore house underscore, for example, ORM. And ORM will stands for ambient occlusion, roughness, metallic, right? So those are the kind of the naming conventions that you're looking for. We're gonna jump into Unreal as soon as this compiles. I learned my lesson for the class Thursday. I'm gonna just load everything from beforehand because it's very painful to be waiting for this. But that's okay because I wanted to go to this information too. I also want to tell you guys that after this class is done, the learning doesn't end. So I will try to reply to the comments into the videos, and I'm gonna try to send more snips and information on LinkedIn and Instagram. But one of the things, a good resource that I think you guys should take a look on is this one here. So I'm gonna link to you guys in the chat, and it's gonna be in the description too. But you can just go to my Epic Games community profile. And my Epic Games community profile has a bunch of cool stuff. It has a very old version of my portfolio. That's the first thing. You can see some projects there. But if you go to tutorials, there is an old series of tutorials. I think it's 30 hours for Unreal 4.6, I think. So it's an older version, or maybe it's Unreal 5. I don't know. This is an old version. But it also has snippets. And snippets are cool because this is essentially setups, materials, or blueprints that you can just Ctrl+C, Ctrl+V into your project, and you're going to have the information already. One of the things that we're going to be building in this course is a master material, okay? So you can just go here and see my master material and see how that stuff is set up. So that's a master material right there. And the powerful thing about this, you can just go here and say copy, and if you paste this inside your material in Unreal, you have a master material set up. So a lot of the content that we're going to be building, we're going to be building together, and I'm going to be making it available after the fact into this snippet place. There is already some stuff that is already hidden there. As you might have seen, that's a little bit of an Easter egg for you. Oh, look at that, Unreal just opened. So let me go back here really quick just to finish that point. There's some stuff that is already available, but it's hidden, that I made a few years ago. And you're going to be seeing a lot of lists, a lot of stuff showing up recent for this training too. So if I wanted to have something that has a panner movement, for example, you want to animate water down, water streaming flow down a river. That's essentially how you would do something like that. So we're going to be playing with that stuff. I'm going to be adding more to it. I wanted to flag that because it's one of the resources that I want you all to be in touch. Additionally, for people that are the first time they are meeting me, it would be amazing if you guys can connect with me on LinkedIn. Okay, LinkedIn and Instagram are the best places for you guys to connect. It's where I usually reply the fastest to people when they message me. I accept everyone. There's no one that I do not accept. Okay, I don't care. I'm like no BS. Just reach out and I reply to everyone. If I take a little bit of time, that means I have a lot of work to do, but I eventually will reply to you. So just shoot a message. Don't be a stranger. If you have a question, comment in the YouTube video, shoot a message privately. I will help as much as I can. All right, so this is Unreal. There might be that my layout looks a little bit than yours. Then I'm just going to do this thing here. And this is a trick for you guys too. Go to Window, Load Layout, Default Editor Layout. So just like that, we are all in the same layout. And what we're going to start to do is, we're going to start breaking down the viewport controls because that's what I think is the most important thing. Okay, so if I want to walk around in my viewport, I will hold right click on the mouse. And while I'm holding, I can just move my mouse around and I can see the viewport, right? I can move my camera around. If I want to walk, it's similar to a first-person game, right? It's a first-person multiplayer game, or like Call of Duty and stuff like that. Hold the right click and I go, W goes forward, and I can lightly tap on my keyboard and you can see it just jumps a little bit. Or I can just hold and keeps moving forward. I can lightly tap S and it goes backwards, or I can just hold and it just goes super back. And if I want to go left and right, I just go left with A. I can lightly tap A and it moves left, or I can hold it. Or I can lightly tap D and it moves right, or I can just hold it. Essentially, this is WASD. So while I'm holding my right click in my mouse and I'm doing this, I can also move my camera around. Usually, if you play an FPS game, you don't need to hold any mouse key. But the reason why we're doing that is because the left click or just moving the mouse around is essentially my selector point, right? So I'm telling Unreal that I want it to be controlling the camera, so that's why I'm holding the right click on my mouse, okay? So let's say I'm gonna move here, and let's say I want to zoom in a little bit. So I can just go and push forward with my mouse wheel too, okay? And if I go left, up and down, I can zoom in or zoom out. I think zooming is a bad explanation because I'm essentially translating space. I'm not really zooming. But if I were to just stay here and zoom into something, I don't want to move at all. What I can do is like hold right click, lightly touch Z to zoom out. Now I'm truly zooming. Or if I release it, go back to normal, I can hold right click again and lightly touch C or hold it. And now I'm truly zooming in. And I can just control with Z and C or Z and C my zooming in and zooming out percentage. Okay. This is very useful if you want to make sure that you're seeing like a tiny object on the ground or see a specific detail on the mesh. That's the best way to approach it. So again, holding right click, WASD, goes in all the directions. Just releasing the right click and just use the mouse wheel, you can push forward and backwards. Holding right click, lightly touch Z, zoom out until it's Fear and Logan Las Vegas or the GTA drunk perspective. Release it, go back to normal, or you can hold right click and just lightly touch C to zoom in. All right, so let's say I want to go up and down. I could, holding right click, press W going up, okay? But then I'm kind of losing the perspective of going up, right? I want to go up with seeing the horizon while I'm doing it. There are a few ways to do it. Holding right click, you can just lightly touch Q and E. And if you lightly touch E, you go up, and you can hold it, you can go up. If you do Q, it goes down. So that's one way. Or, which is very powerful too, you can hold right click and the left click of your mouse, and now you're panning. I'm panning stuck to the axis X and Z. How do I know those are the axes? Because if you see here in the bottom right corner of my screen, that's essentially what's showing up. Okay, so I can just go like this, right click and left click, and I can pan in the axis. If I release my right click though, I can just use the left click and move, and now I'm translating stuck to the axis X and Y. So this is another interesting way to move that doesn't require a keyboard. You can do all this movement with just your mouse control. So just holding left and right click in the mouse. Cool? So let's say by any chance that you want to move all the way to the back there, but that mountain is so far away, it's going to take a solid 2 minutes to get there. Is there a way to do that faster? So I'm going to go back here. Let me go back. I'm already lost. There you go. So there is a way to go fast. If you go to the top right corner of the screen, you have the speed of your camera. So I can just go here and say 44, and I lightly touch, and you can see I'm jumping really far away. Okay? I can do this to go up to, and I'm already crossing. Look at that. I'm going close to the clouds, the volumetric clouds. And if I look down now, that's my landscape right there. But let's go crazier. Let's say 44 is not enough. Your world is very big. You can just multiply this by 1,000, for example, in the multiplier here. And if I touch once and I look down, now I'm all the way in space. Okay? Which brings to the point, one of the things that is annoying about Unreal, the first time you're learning, you sometimes get lost into the viewport. And then people are going to message me, Thiago, I had to start a new level because I can't find my way back. There's no way I can travel the way back to the landscape because I can't even see it. Well, luckily for you, if you have two options to do it, you can just select something in the world, for example, my directional light icon or my skylight icon, and press F in the keyboard, and it's going to jump there. Or Shift F, there's a smooth transition, a little bit smoother than the just jumping. This is F, this is Shift F. It's just a little bit of a transition travel. Or like if I'm in this view here, what I can do that's amazing. Check this out. If I go to the keyboard, here's a hotkey for you guys, and you go Control 1, you're essentially hotkeying, bookmarking that location, which means if I go all the way to space and I want to go back, I can just press the 1 in my keyboard, and my camera is going to snap that back. And you have from 1 all the way to 0 of bookmark locations. So I can just go here and save a bunch of bookmark locations for me. So I'm going to say another location that I find interesting. By the way, it's going to also save the direction your camera is looking to. So this dune here, I find interesting. So I'm going to go Control 2. I really like this area here. So I'm going to go Control 3. Maybe this one here is also interesting to me. So Control 4, Control 5, all the way to 10. So I can just cycle now. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm cycling to those bookmark locations. This is very good, very powerful tool for you to master, because when you were building something, it might be that you're building the exterior of a castle, but then you want to see how the interior looks like. Maybe there's an intersecting geometry, but you're doing the walls of the castle. You need to see if there's anything on the outside that is intersecting with the interior. So you can hotkey or bookmark the interior and the exterior of it, and you can just cycle between them really fast. 1, 2, 3, right? So that's an interesting command for you to master. So what else can we do here? Well, up to this point, we're just manipulating the camera into the viewports. And what we see here is my perspective view. Everything is on perspective right now. So let's say that you want to, if you're coming from another software, you never opened Unreal before in your life, you used to Cinema 4D, you used to 3D Max, Maya, you really miss the orthographic views. Luckily for you, not that I use often, but luckily for you, you can access those orthographic views by just going with your mouse to the top right of your viewport. In ways, it has a button with a quadrant of 4 small squares. If you click it, you're going to have access to the orthographic views now. They are all linked a little bit. Like you move one, you move all of them. And we can always unlink it, but I prefer to be like this. I almost never use it, but it's actually telling you top, right, back. And you can just say here, actually, I want this to be bottom for some reason. So you can always do that. And if you want to maximize one of these views, you just go to each one of those viewports to the top right and maximize them. Okay. And if you want to go back, you can just go here, perspective. That's one way of doing it. Another way of doing it is just going here to the top where it says perspective and just select the view that you want. You can also access that in the top left part of the screen. Okay. So you notice that every time I go to that one and I just go here where it says perspective and I say, like, for example, bottom, I'm instantly jumping to a wireframe view. So I'm going to go to the top because it's going to be easier to understand. What if I don't want to see the wireframe? Well, right beside it, you have an option to see this in different ways. So the first one is Alt 4, is your perspective, sorry, is your lit view, which essentially has the light and shadow information of your GI or your directional lights, anything. I want to go back to perspective and show to you that this is essentially what this view is. You can cycle between those different preview versions by just going there. And for example, unlit, no light and shadow information whatsoever. Maybe I want to see the wireframe in the perspective. I can just cycle there. That's my wireframe. Maybe I want to see a lit wireframe, which is essentially a wireframe on top of the geometry. I use this all the time. I think it's super useful. Maybe you wanted to get the tail lagging. The tail lagging is just light information, okay? There's no shading whatsoever. It's just the light information with material normals accounted for. Then you have only lagging that has no material properties accounted for. Then you have your reflections. They are useful to see. Like, for example, I can see here in the corner of the right here that the reflections are loading as I'm moving. That means I'm using screen reflections, right? Screen space reflections. I can see as I move there, the reflections are catching up my viewport movement. So that's an interesting preview, view mode for you to see essentially how items are being reflected. And you can just play a bunch of stuff. If you go to Lumen, you have an overview of it. Like it's essentially telling you the information about Lumen. When you have stuff, this thing is going to make a lot of sense. But you have so many buffers here. For example, if you want to isolate just the base color of your scene, that's the base color buffer. There is no roughness here, but you can also just go here and say, give me metallic, for example. There's no metallic, so everything's going to be this way. Actually, there is metallic. Look at that. Into the wireframe, sorry, the grid texture, there is metallic, which makes sense, is the reflective part. So you can just go around, enable, disable to see this viewport in different ways. I'm just going to take a quick sip. So now we know how to navigate into the world. We know how to visualize the world in different ways. Let's now figure out how to manipulate stuff into the world, okay? Because it's all this is gonna make more sense as we go. But right now we know how to move the camera, but we don't really know how to put stuff into the world and play with it, right? And then I'll explain the other areas of the viewport as we go. So let's do it. I hope I'm not going super fast. Okay, so I'm here in the world. You see that I'm selecting stuff with my selection tool, and I have access to a gizmo. Okay, I'm not going to play with these ones. I'm going to show to you how to add stuff that you can start blocking out. So I'm going to go to the top left here in this box, and I'm going to say shapes. I'm going to bring a cube to my scene. I click it and I drag it, and you can see I can pick where I want that cube to be. By default, Unreal is going to place, every time you drag something into the world, it's going to place that based on the pivot. The pivot of this cube is in the center. So when it's placed, it's not really aligned to the surface of the world. That's why it was cut in half there. So I actually needed to move this up in order to have that stuff aligned to the world. So in order to manipulate this, it's pretty straightforward. If I press W, see, nothing changes because that's my move gizmo, okay? So I can just go here in this asset. I'm going to pull this thing up to show to you. And I can just go on the Z axis. I can see here on the bottom left what axis I'm manipulating. Click and drag, and I'm moving this stuff up. You might be asking right now, Thiago, is your computer slow? Why is lagging? It's almost like it is snapping. That is by design. We have snapping enabled. I want to show to you in a second what that is, but let me finish explaining to you how to manipulate it. So this goes Z-axis, this go X, positive and negative, this go Y, positive and negative. And you can see there's a little bit of a slow movement because of the snap. So I can also go here and hover to the square there. See, on the center there, there's a square, and I can move two axes at the same time. And that's super awesome when you're trying to align something. Like you like the Z-axis, you just want to move into the other two, you can just do this. Right? But I still have that weird snapping that we're operating with. Why is that? And you might be asking, Thiago, what exactly is snapping to? Well, if you look down here on this, you're going to notice that you have a grid that has a bunch of tiny boxes, tiny squares. Okay, if I press G, I can hide and show the grids. G essentially hides and show gizmos and icons and stuff like that, but also the grids of your scene. My grid is essentially 10 by 10. Okay, each one of this combined, like this is Unreal units of centimeters. So every 10 centimeters combined is a meter. So this big square here is 1 meter by 1 meter, which is the default size of this cube too. If I go to the top right corner here, you see there's a grid with a number 10. It's essentially telling me that I'm snapping this item every 10 centimeters. And you can see that to be true because look, I move a little bit and then it's moving 10, another 10, another 10, another 10. I can just go here and say, well, 10 centimeters is too much. I can just click it with this number, say move every 5 centimeters. So now I'm half that one, half that one, half that one. You can actually see that the grid changed the size of the squares too. So what happens if I go to a big number? Well, my grid's going to change it. And now if I push this all the way there, it's going to move 10,000 centimeters. So look at that. F, you already snap all the way far as hell. Let's say I want to go back to there. I can just drag this back. Or I can just go to my details tab. And this is essentially case sensitive. Everything that you select is going to have a different details. But most assets, because they exist in the world, will have transform. So I can just go here to my transform and click on this arrow that returns to the reset position, which is the 000 of your scene. So even my Z got reset there, right? But I could, in theory, so here I'm gonna move again. Whoops. Actually, let me go 10, push up, go 1,000. Like instead of resetting, I can say just 0, X, and Y. And I press tab to cycle between those two. So I can just do that, and that would be totally fine. So I'm snapping to this amount of centimeters, okay? But let's say for any chance I do not want to snap. I have a number that is not part of the modular grid. I can either click this button and then it's not going to be blue, that means it's deactivated. And as I move, look that the numbers right now, they have extra padding, right? That means it's no longer respecting the grid. So I can just move this stuff around in any direction. And you might be asking, Thiago, why would I do this? I think like when you're building stuff, like when you're trying to build a world, like if you look around my room or your room right now, look at the other stuff, right? Chances are you live in a world that everything is built by a manufacturing process, right? Which means everything is modular inherently. Everything, every window is a 2x5, 5x2. There's specific sizes that they combine together, almost like Lego. Lego is a modular piece system, right? Which means everything, the door, the window, they attach together like Lego pieces. So there's no gap between the pieces. And that's why you build stuff as a modular, following a modular grid. You will break the modular grids when you, for example, on my table right now, I have 2 water bottles. They don't need to be specifically aligned to the grid. So I'm going to break the modularity of it to just move them more freely, right? To the organic aspect of it. So I grew up in a small town in Brazil. And a lot of stuff in the house that I grew up was done by hand, okay? There was no manufacturing process to it. So it was common to see like a door frame, and when the door closes, there was a gap in the top or something like that, right? Because that stuff was like an artisan that did. Like the stairs in my house were crooked, that kind of stuff, right? So they don't respect the grids in real life. But we do when we're building that kind of stuff from scratch. So that's how you move. So if I press E now, I have access to another gizmo. And that gizmo has 3 axes, okay? That's my rotation gizmo. So if I go here and I start rotating my cube, you can see that it's rotating in 10-degree increments. And I can just go to the other axis and do the same, okay? Notice that my gizmo, it continues to be aligned to the same direction, even though I'm rotating. That's going to be important. I'm going to show to you something in a second. But let's say you want to change the rotation amount. You can just go here to the rotation increment and just play with those values. So it rotates every 90 degrees. So just snap every 90 degrees. If you want it, you can also break away from that. And now you're rotating freely. No specific angle. Now it's 36.46, for example. Okay? Here's the thing though. I rotated this, and now I don't know exactly where my orientation of my object is, which is something that is very important. That is because if you go down a few icons here, there is this planet, okay? And if you hover it, you can see the hotkey to enable. I'm right now enabling this rotation and movement into the world axis. The world axis is essentially a gizmo like this aligned to the world, okay? So I'm gonna show a real life example. I have my bottle of water here. Right now, this axis is aligned to the world, okay? And I can move like this, and I can rotate. As soon as I rotate like this, my rotation right now is not aligned to the bottle. It's still aligned to the world. So my angle of rotation is like here. So I'm rotating like this, right? So if I go back to my 3D, and it might be what you want, but usually that's not the case. I wanted to rotate this and to move this aligned to the object, right? So I can just go here where it has that planet, click it, and it's going to change. You can see the gizmo instantly change the directions. So now I know that the top of my assets is here, and then I can move in this axis. And if I go to my rotation, oops, you can see that that axis is right there. Sorry, 90 degrees is going to be very hard to see on the cube, so there you go. So every time I rotate, you can see that the position of the movement axis and the rotation axis is changing. because now I'm rotating and moving in local space. Okay, I'm going to reset the position and the rotation. I'm going to move this up a little bit. Then you have the third icon here, which is your scale. So if I press R, I have access to that. So I can just go one axis at a time, okay? And like everything else, the scaling is also snapping to the grid, right? So we could go here and just break that, and then you have free scaling. What you can also do, you can select and scale two sides at the same time. You always have the options to do two axes at the same time. Or in the case of scaling specifically, you have scaling uniformly, right? If you deform, you can now scale this uniformly by just going to the center. Doesn't matter for scaling if you have worlds or the other thing, because the only thing that matters for scaling is local scale, right? It's always related to the object. So if I rotate and I scale here, it's always going to be related to the orientation, okay? What matters to you though is you can just go here to the snaps and you can change the way that that thing is scaled. So if I go here to 10 and I do this, I'm pushing, and then it's suddenly just like is a massive rock thing coming out of the ground, right? If I wanted to scale less, I just need to go here, put a very tiny increment of scaling, and I can just go back and start doing that stuff. I can fine tune until, for example, here's a good place to zoom in, until I get those both sides very close to one another. So I move here, go there, and just get very tiny. I can, let's say like that's what I want, I can just go here too and just move this number left and right to fine tune it a little bit. I'm literally selecting with the left click and dragging left and right to do that. And I can just reset it. Okay, scaling is cool because you can uniform scaling or non-uniform scaling. If you're doing the viewports, you can do whatever you want, okay? But if you're doing by numbers here, you're going to notice the scale has a lock. If you lock it, every time you change one number, it's going to be uniformly scaling. If you unlock it, every time you click and drag in one of those numbers, it's going to be changing that non-uniformly. So that way you can just play with the scale and just make any changes you want. Even if that means non-uniform scaling, which is something that you should avoid at all costs, in my humble opinion. But yeah. Let's say, oh, Thiago, that's cool, but you show me so many hotkeys, W, E, R, and when you're holding right click, W, E, R, movement. I'm getting confused. That's not a problem. If you go to your viewport to the top right here, you can see that you have, if you hover the tools, it tells you exactly what the hotkeys for that is. So you're never alone, okay? So we touch base all of this, but there's one icon that we skipped, which is this one here. That's called surface snapping. So this is useful when I'm dragging stuff into the world. So let's say I want to drag a shape, a cube on top of this cube. It kind of is, but the pivot is set up in the center there. So it's not really that helpful. And if I move stuff around, it's not changing the orientation. So if I go to my snap and I do surface snap and I hold the center, as I'm moving right now, you can see it's snapping stuff around. The easiest way to see this in action is to make this an odd shape like this, like a weird plank or something. And if I move now, you can start seeing that is snapping the orientation to whatever I want. And that wouldn't happen if you had surface snap disabled. Okay, so this is super useful when you're building stuff on top of all the stuff. You can use this to quickly design objects on top of one another, or stack books and stuff. It's always going to be related to the pivot. So when you're building assets, the proper way, for example, to build that book would be to have the pivot on the base of the book, so you can quickly use this snapping to set up a small scene. Cool. So that's all the viewport. Let's go now cycling through the stuff around the viewport. I'm going to try to make analogies to Windows and your computer, because if the first time you open Unreal, that's the best way to understand. So let's do that. Go back to main. All right. So you'll be seeing me using the viewport. This is the viewport right here. And you'll be seeing me interacting with everything. And every time, I told you, every time I click in something, it highlights in the outliner, okay? And that's what we call the world outliner. which if I were to make an analogy to Windows, that's essentially a Windows Explorer, the folder structure of it. So in this world, everything that exists in this world is going to be here. Okay? So for example, my landscape, I can click in the landscape here and I can move, I can change the stuff, I can click in the cube and I can move around. So everything that exists in the world is going to exist in this list. That's your world outline. What is also important is that it tells you amount of actors that are being loaded, but when you click on something, in your details tab, you load the information for each one of those objects. So most of the time we're going to spend manipulating stuff in here. We're also going to spend time here. So for example, if I go here to the top and I press a light, I'm going to put a point light here. The information that I have for the lights is different from what I have for static mesh because it's sensitive to what kind of actor is being selected. So for the light, for example, of course, I have the light intensity. I have the color of the light. I have all this kind of stuff that is available to me. So every time you put something in the world, this is where you're going to access. If you put a blueprint in here, you're going to be able to go here, and then it's going to be a button, add blueprint, and then you're going to be able to change settings the blueprint. So this is where usually you spend most of your time inside Unreal. It's your content browser and your details tab. Viewport, where you manipulate the world. Outliner, where you list everything that exists in the world. Details tab, where it's not case sensitive, but it's sensitive to what selection that is, which is the information about those assets that are available. Then on the top here, and I think Unreal is very, very smart about this. You can see there's like there's an Unreal logo, and then there is a gray selection with a tab. That is because it's essentially telling you, Unreal is telling you that this tab here is all underneath this is related to this. Okay, the easiest way to understand is like if I wanted to manipulate anything in my viewport is a selection mode. If I go here, I can do landscape, foliage, mesh paint, modeling. We're gonna go through all of this in this next few weeks, which is gonna be cool. I also have access to my save button, so I can just go here and save, and I can pick a location to save. I have access to the quick add to the project thing that I was using, and this is essentially a list of all the possible things that you can add to this world. If you're gonna do this often, you can just cycle here, and as I'm doing, just see what the options are for you. There's literally so many. Or you can just go here and type. Let's say I want a cube. I want effects. There's no effects in here. Niagara. I want a light. You can use the search there for that too. You have beside it your blueprints. Like you can access your level blueprints, all the types of blueprints. If you don't know where a blueprint is, don't stress about this right now. As we go through these classes, you're going to understand. You have your cinematics, so you can create a level sequence or a level cinematics. And you have your controls to play and pause the game. Right now, if I play as a preview, I'm just going to be able to look around. There's not much of a gameplay aspect happening here. We're going to learn in a second how to set up a gameplay asset. But that's essentially what that is. And then you can pick the platforms to test it. So all of this is related to this. What you also have here that is important is your settings, okay? So you have your world settings. If you click it, you're going to have access to it. You can change a bunch of stuff about it. Don't worry about that right now. You have a plugins, project settings. You have the preview setup. You have scalability, which is essentially how you want this to be rendered in the viewport. You can just say cinematic is going to be super heavy. I'm going to go back to Epic. The quality level of your materials can be set to Epic. All this is related to this viewport. That's why it's inside this gray tab, which I think is pretty powerful. Everything above it is really not related to the level, but to the project itself. So you can just go here, file, open a level, do a bunch of stuff. And this is like your default bar inside any software. If you go to Windows, you can have access to a bunch of stuff in here, right? That you can enable, disable. So I can just say, give me a secondary details tab, okay? I want this details tab, for example, when I have my lights selected to be just the details tab of the lights. So with my asset selected, I can just say lock. And if I click on all the stuff, my details tab is going to change in the other one, but it's not going to change that one. And what I can do, I can just move that into areas of my viewports to dock that into the layouts. I can even move here beside this. So if by any reason I always need to have a control for the lights, I can just do this and arrange my viewport any way I want. You can also just drag this out, and then this is a floating window that you can use around. If you have a ultra wide monitor like I do this a lot. Like I have my viewport and I have a bunch of windows everywhere. So you can just arrange, you can pull stuff out. and you can close it. And let's break this whole thing, guys. So I'm gonna break the whole viewport. Okay. So I broke the whole thing, and you messaged me at midnight, Thiago. Oh my God, I want to study, but I can't figure out what happened. So you can just go to Window again, load layouts, the full editor. You can also, if you like, go to Window and enable full screen mode, which is probably what I should be doing since the beginning. Cool. So that's kind of like your project settings. You can go to help and you can access the version. You can access the learning, training, the dev community. That's essentially it's gonna load you the information in the browser. Cool. So what else do we have here? Well, this is a matter of preference. I don't like the way that the content drawer is displayed, but the content drawer, when you click it, is gonna up like a drawer, and this is essentially your. If you were to make an analogy, this is your Windows Explorer. Everything related to your project is going to be here. Right now, there is nothing in my content folder because I didn't add anything to the project. I didn't create anything, but eventually there will be. The problem is every time I click in the world, that stuff closes, and I truly hate that. So if you're like me, you want to have that stuff open all the time, what you can do is content drawer. Epic kindly added a button for us called Dock in Layout, and in that way, this is always open, regardless if I'm using or not. And like everything else, you can move stuff around like this, for example. It's really up to you. So let's add some stuff to this project because we already understood the interface. We already know how to navigate to the interface. We already know how to manipulate the camera. So let's just start adding stuff that might be fun. So when we were creating the project, I told you guys that we can enable stuff at any time that we want, right? We don't need to enable everything prior when we're creating. We can just say, oh, I actually want to have a third-person perspective. I actually want to have the starter content. We can enable that stuff as we go. And I prefer to do that because it makes sure that the project is not so full of crap. And then eventually it might like, oh my God, there's like 40 gigabytes of stuff that I never use. So we just add as we need it. Okay, so let's do that. The goal right now is to one, add a bunch of content, and two, add a game mode so we can walk around the environment. So let's do that together. So I'm gonna go here where it says add, and you're gonna see there's a bunch of stuff that I can do. This is a menu that we're gonna be using often, okay? But for now, I think my Unreal just crashed, actually. That would be so funny. I think the Unreal just crashed, folks. Nope, it's back. It did crash for a second. Sorry for that. That's going to happen a lot too, unfortunately. So if I go to my add here, you see on the very top, there is add, feature, or content pack. Okay. If I click on this, I can see here that all the stuff that I had, all the options that I had before are available for me right now. So I can make this a third-person game. I can make this a top-down, whatever I want. I can make it into a VR. I can even make it to a racing game. So the first thing I'm going to do is select third person, add to project. Okay, it's going to process, and you're going to see that the content folder now, a bunch of stuff was added. A bunch of new folders are available for us. Let's say I also want the content. I can just skip the C++ because we don't need that right now, and just go here to start a content and say add to project 2. So essentially, if I close this now, my project right now has a bunch of new stuff, and we can cycle through this. So let's take a look in the starter content, and we go back to this level right after, okay? So I'm gonna save this level, actually, file, save current level as. And because I'm already doing this, I'm gonna get into the habit right now, all of the batches, to do the folder structure and the naming convention that I want. So selecting content, I'm gonna go Ctrl-Shift-N, or right-click, new folder. And I'm gonna name this UE training. Enter. That's gonna be the folder that I'm gonna put everything. I can share this project with you guys after. Double click. I want to create a new folder, and the new folder is going to be maps. Okay. Double clicking it, and what I want to do is this one is L_world partition. I'm specifying specifically what kind of level this is. _P. That's my main level. So I'm just saving this thing there. The reason why I'm doing this is because I'm going to open another map. I'm going to go to my starter content, look for maps, and then just look for a starter map. As I'm opening here, you can see there is a list of shaders that are be compiling. So I just need to wait a little bit, and you're going to start seeing all these materials applying. They're essentially loading. And this might, how fast it's going to load depends on your machine, to be honest. Okay. Almost there. And not only do you have materials, surfaces, but you also have some particle effects that they're going to show up here. Like, for example, this fire, sparks, some smoke, a bunch of sounds. And if I do simulate here, if I go here and say select a viewport, simulate, it's going to be heavy because it's still compiling. Oh my God. But there's a bunch of interaction there that happen. I should have waited, but all these assets are physically based. And it also has some music, but thank God I didn't put the music on the stream, so we don't need to worry about that. So this is cool because it's already like a starting point for you. You have access to all these materials. So if you want to find these in the project, you can select the material. In the details tab here where it says material, you can just go to this box, so this folder with a magnifier, and it's going to take you all the way to the materials folder of starter content where you have all those surfaces available for you, which is very powerful. So I can just go back here and go to maps, advanced lighting. Let's see what we have there available for us. Oh, that's just a skylight of the Epic HQ. That is lighting up this asset in the center. So if you want to make a turntable, you can just light up your scene with an ADRI. So you have stuff available for you. Let's go back to where we were before, Unreal Training Maps. And that's my main map right here. And what I want to do, I want to set up a I want to set up a third person setup. So when I play, I can walk around with my character and see the world. So how can we do that? Well, it's very straightforward. Just go here to the top. There are two ways of doing it. I'll show to you. But you can just go here and where it says game mode, you can just select game mode class third person BP third person game. Look at that. That's the naming convention for Blueprint. And if you just do that and you press play now, you're going to be able to, as soon as my performance is extremely poor for some reason, you can just go around and just check the asset, right? And I can just walk into the whole environment. Let's say I change my mind and I don't want to be a third person. You can just add another one, and then you're just going to have to add the blueprints there to be able to manipulate the character in the environment. So our content browser is essentially where everything is grouped. What I usually like to do when I add these starter contents, I like to do two things. I go to my training, I right click and I go set color, and I put this usually in green. And that means to me and the people that work with me that that's where our project files are. Everything else, what I usually like to do too, is create a new folder called ingest. And usually that's a folder that I literally drag everything else in there. And that's the folder where my assets that I import into the project are going to live. So I can just go here to my characters, move inside ingest. Do you want to continue? Yes, it's going to take some time. And the reason why I'm doing this is just trying to organize the project. It also tells to everyone in my team and people that are taking a look at my project, my students, that if the stuff is inside the ingest, that means I just added temporarily. I didn't use it in the final piece. What I tend to do usually is whenever I make a change to the stuff that I put in there, I make a copy to a final location, to a final folder. That way, it just keeps the entire project organized. And that's kind of the idea behind it. So as you're doing that, I'm going to wait more than 2 minutes to complete. It's 49%. What I would like to suggest, like I don't know if you already know Unreal, this class is just very basic to you. But if it's a beginner, here's what I recommend you do. Okay, this is my challenge to you. If you follow along, this is what I would like to see you doing, and I would like to see the results of that too. Because you have access to these basic shapes, okay? And in theory, you can create very complex stuff with this. What I would do is do this. I'm gonna go shape, cube, move it to my scene. And if I want to create another cube, I can just hold Alt in the keyboard, pick an axis and just drag. And what I would love to see you guys trying is building something with it. Maybe build a temple or a house, almost like if it is a Lego piece, you know? So here, I'm going to put rotation, holding Alt. Every time you touch into one of the gizmos, you make a duplication of it. So just like that, I have almost like a Stonehenge, okay? Oh, Thiago, that's like a very basic shape. I know, but the exercise here is not really building something beautiful, but understanding how you can manipulate the geometry into the viewport. I would love to see some of you that never open a reel to try to do something like that. And you can just be fancy. Now that we have the started content, I can just go to that folder, for example, in my materials, and I can just type in the search rock and see if there's any cool rock that we can assign. It's just click and drag into those objects. And we can just decrease this thing here a little bit. And just create interesting stuff, right? So maybe this door here, if I enable my snap, has a golden sphere on the top. So I can just go here, shape, sphere, put this one here, there, move up, and then just go here and set gold. Click and drag there, put it here. So I'm essentially just playing with stuff, okay? I'm adding stuff to the world. So let's say that, like, Thiago, this is too boring. I would like to add actual assets to the world. There's another thing that you can do. And then after that, I'm going to go for questions if you have any. And we're going to wrap it up. So check this out. If this is not a challenge, you already kind of know how to navigate the viewport, but you want to actually build stuff. And you have an account on the launcher, okay? So I'm going to go here, window, get out of this, go to my launcher, right? I have a bunch of stuff that I got from Fab for free. Let's say I have a castle. If you have assets, you can just add that stuff to your project, either through here, or if you go to here where it says Fab, it's going to load the viewport. It's going to ask you to log in. And you're going to have access to everything that you have in your project. You can just go to the top here and say My Library. It's going to show everything that I have. So I can just go here and start adding stuff to this. So maybe what I want is, let's see. Maybe what I want is, all this stuff is going to be heavy as hell. Some of this DVs, a Brazilian guy, love his work. I can just select it, add to project. It's going to open a progress bar here, all those assets being added. So I can just build, for example, trees around my small temple there, right? You're going to see that's going to finish in a second. So the idea is I would like you to try to get into the habit of importing stuff through Fab or to the marketplace. So then you can just go and using the tools and manipulating, working in the viewports, you can very quickly set up a small temple here with trees beside it. It's compiling the shader because the materials of the trees are a little bit heavy. I'm going to put another one here too. And just like that, I can close my content drawer if you want. And just like that, I have something. I'm already manipulating the stuff and creating a world, and that's the goal for this training, right? We want to be able to create something together. So now I have a portal that I can just walk through. I can just jump through. Honestly, folks, the complex scene and the simple scene are going to be the same. You're going to be designing stuff this way, okay? You're just going to drag stuff to the scene and building it together. I'm going to show to you eventually when we're building more complex stuff, easier way to do it. But for now, I just want you to focus on the basics, okay? If you want, you can use snap. You can also hold V in the keyboard while you're moving. And you're going to be seeing there's like a bunch of tiny blue dots. That's a vertex snap. So I can just hold V, and essentially it's going to be snapping to the vertex of the tree there, for example. So that's another interesting way to build stuff. So I can just go to this one here, V, and I can snap to the vertexes of the sphere. That's another additional way to move stuff around. But everything that we learned today is supposed to be basics, introductory. It's supposed to be like, hey, I never used Unreal before, or I use all the software running on Unreal. What is the head start? So what we covered today, we understood how to manipulate camera, how to navigate the viewport, how to manipulate assets in the viewport. We understood what exactly the outliner is supposed to be doing. Every time we make a change in the details tab, what exactly that looks like. We understand the content drawer. We know now how to add feature packs into the project. Like say I want to make this into a card game now. I can just go there, add feature pack, card game, and that's it. And we understood how to add that to the blueprint so we can press play and actually play it. So as a cohesive piece, this is all the foundations you need right now to just put stuff in the viewport, start building something up. So what we build from this for the next classes is just like changing material, building landscapes, building effects, playing with cameras and lights, understanding what cameras and lights do. But this is the solid foundation. If you master, just essentially the exercise is I get a Lego kit and I throw away the manual and have all the pieces and I'm just going to slap a bunch of stuff together. Now we'll love you to see this. Find stuff on Fab that is free. There's a lot of stuff that is free on Fab, right? If I go to Fab here and I just go to my search here, honestly, Discover, and I see, let's see. I'm going to be honest with you, this is a little bit Unreal Engine. And if I go to my price and I say free, there's a lot of stuff available for you. So you could, for example, download the whole project that has all these assets, okay? And you can use those assets to start building a scene yourself. And the stuff that you do to build the scenes is what is manipulating the viewport. So it's not that complicated. And this is kind of the idea of what we're trying to do here. First, we learn how to manipulate the viewport. Then we know how to learn how to customize it. And that's when the advanced aspects of Unreal come to. So that's it. Cut. And if anyone has a question, we can go for it. I'm going to try to make this like 1 hour and a half max. I want it to be like go, go, go. I might have been a little bit fast, to be honest. But then you can rewatch it, slow the speed. And that way we can cover a lot in this next few months. Because I really want to make this into like the best free course online. That's my goal. This needs to be the best free Unreal Engine resource online. So I'm going to go ham this. All right, let me see here what people said. Beyond 3D said, howdy, Thiago, checking from Brazil. I did your Refinic course. It was pretty awesome. Congrats, keep rocking. Thank you, I appreciate it. That one was a extreme one. We already replied about Evil Refuse. People are just saying nice and stuff like that. There's not really a question today. I think everyone that joined already knows how to use Unreal. So for everyone that sees this after, this is a gift. Like if you never opened Unreal before, or you have a friend that wants to learn Unreal, it's always bothering you. Oh, I really wish I knew Unreal. Just send this video. That's it. That's that's where it starts. That's the first class of many. Just send to the person that wants to learn Unreal this class. Never opened before. This will give you the head start to just start throwing stuff in the viewport and starting to build stuff. And we're just going to build more complex as we go. I guess that's it. If that's it, I love you all. The recording is going to be available. And if you need anything, shoot a message. Again, just for the sake of information, there's a few links that I want you to remember. You can go to my dev Thiago community where I have all the snippets from Unreal. The Alar naming convention, I'm going to leave that in the description of the recording. And if you want, you can always reach out to me on LinkedIn. I will message you as soon as I can. Everyone should message me, folks. Everyone should add me. No, don't be a stranger. Just shoot a message there. I will try to help as much as I can. It's always a pleasure to help people. So the people that know me knows I reply on Instagram, LinkedIn all the time. More easily Instagram, to be honest. Well, that's it. Thanks for everyone that show up live. Thanks for everyone that is watching this, the recording. And I hope this is the beginning of an amazing journey for all of us. Peace out.